I'm sitting here in front of my screen watching something absolutely insane unfold in real time. A U.S. military aircraft is missing over western Iraq, 6 crew members gone. No hostile fire, they say. No friendly fire, they say. Just gone. And at the exact same moment, Iranian drones are striking a French military base near Erbil airport in northern Iraq. 6 French soldiers injured. And somewhere in a room in Washington, D.C., inside the White House, the President of the United States is posting on social media, demanding that his own Federal Reserve chairman cut interest rates immediately. This is not a movie. This is not a simulation. This is Tuesday. What I'm going to walk you through in the next few minutes is going to completely reshape how you understand what is happening with America's war on Iran, why it's spinning out of control faster than anyone predicted, what it means for markets, for energy prices, for global alliances, and most critically, what it means for you. Because this isn't just geopolitics on a screen. This is already hitting your wallet, your gas pump, your retirement account, and it's only getting started. Stay with me, because what I'm about to show you is something the mainstream conversation is completely missing. If you haven't subscribed to Daily Brief yet, do it right now. Hit that bell, because in the next 48 hours, this story is going to move fast and you need to be in the room when it does. Let's go back to how this started, because to understand the chaos of today, you have to understand the recklessness of the beginning. Operation Epic Fury. That's what the Pentagon called it. A name that sounds designed for a video game, not a war that would reshape global alliances, destabilize oil markets, and put American soldiers in the crosshairs of a regional power with sophisticated drone capabilities and proxy forces spread across 5 countries. This war, and let's be clear, it is a war, not an operation, not a strike package, not a limited military action. This war did not begin with a vote in Congress. It did not begin with a NATO consultation. It did not begin with a briefing to allied Arab governments who had every reason to be told. According to multiple reports from NBC News and other outlets, it began with a phone call from Netanyahu and a decision made in real time by a president who, by all accounts, had no exit strategy, no coalition, no defined mission, and no timeline. That is not how wars work. That is how disasters begin. Let's trace the timeline precisely. Before the first strikes were launched, U.S. intelligence, Trump's own intelligence agencies, assessed that Iran was not actively pursuing nuclear weapons. The same intelligence community assessed that Iran's ballistic missiles would not be capable of reaching the continental United States until approximately 2035, not tomorrow, not next year, 2035. That was the baseline. That was the threat level that justified this. And yet, within the first 72 hours of Operation Epic Fury, the justification changed 3 times. First, it was regime change. Then it was about dismantling nuclear and ballistic missile capabilities. Then it became retribution. Then it shifted again, this time to a preemptive strike, the argument being that because Israel had already hit Iran, America needed to retaliate before Iran retaliated against America for Israel hitting them. Read that sentence again. Let that sit. This is the logic that sent American KC-135 tanker aircraft into the skies over a war zone. This is the logic that now has 6 American crew members missing over western Iraq. This is the logic under which 6 French soldiers were just injured by Iranian drone strikes on a joint base in northern Iraq. This is the logic under which U.S. Central Command is now confirming that 2 aircraft were involved in the KC-135 incident. One went down, the other landed safely. And as of the time of this recording, those 6 crew members remain unaccounted for. U.S. Central Command confirmed these details. They also noted, and this is important, that the incident was not the result of hostile fire or friendly fire. What that means exactly, we do not yet know. Mechanical failure during combat operations in a contested region is still a loss. Rescue operations are ongoing. Meanwhile, here is what else is happening simultaneously. Iranian drone attacks struck a joint Peshmerga-France base in the Makhmur region of northern Iraq. The governor of Erbil confirmed the strikes. Video footage from the scene shows debris scattered across a civilian apartment building near Erbil airport. 2 civilians injured there, according to local officials on the ground. Iranian drones have now struck targets in Kuwait, in Bahrain, oil depots in UAE, commercial infrastructure near areas with reported American military presence. This is not one strike. This is a sustained, multi-front, multi-country Iranian response that is systematically probing every vulnerability across the Gulf theater. And here is the number you need to understand. According to Reuters reporting, the Strait of Hormuz, through which approximately 20 to 21% of global oil supply passes, remains technically closed to international shipping as Iran has imposed de facto blockade conditions. It remains open, however, to Iranian tankers and Chinese vessels. Let that calculus sink in. Subscribe to Daily Brief if you want to follow this in real time. We're going to keep updating this story every day. Announcement number 1, and this one hit the markets like a freight train. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent gave interviews, plural, multiple media appearances, in which he stated clearly that the United States does not have the capabilities to protect Strait of Hormuz shipping on its own. His exact framing, according to reporting from multiple outlets, was that America needs an international coalition to protect vessels in the strait. America alone, he said, cannot do it. Stop. Read that again. This is not an anonymous source. This is the sitting Treasury Secretary of the United States, the man whose job it is to manage market confidence in American economic power, publicly acknowledging that the most critical maritime choke point on the planet is beyond the unilateral capacity of the most powerful military in human history to secure. Markets responded accordingly. Oil volatility indices spiked. Shipping insurance premiums, what traders call war risk premiums, surged to levels not seen since the early stages of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Airlines exposed to fuel costs began repricing forward contracts. Energy stocks and refining moved sharply. Companies like Marathon Petroleum, Valero, and Phillips 66 saw significant intraday swings as traders tried to price the duration of Hormuz disruption into their models. Goldman Sachs, according to financial press reporting, issued an urgent note to clients. The message was simple. Hormuz disruption is no longer a tail risk scenario. It is the base case until further notice. This is announcement number 1, received. Announcement number 2, and this one terrified the Gulf Arab states in ways that the White House clearly did not anticipate. Reuters published a report, and I want to be precise here, titled with the framing that while the United States ignited this Iran conflict, the Gulf Arab states are the ones paying the price. This is not fringe commentary. This is Reuters. This is mainstream international reporting. Here is the core of what Reuters documented. Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain had engaged in extensive side arrangements with the Trump administration. Investments in Trump-affiliated entities, participation in economic initiatives tied to White House access. The implicit understanding, according to sources cited in the reporting, was that American protection and security guarantees would follow. What these Gulf states received instead was a war launched without consultation, without warning, and without a plan. A war that has now made them targets of Iranian retaliation strikes, that has closed shipping lanes they depend on for economic survival, and that has demonstrated, as Reuters put it, the limits of American security guarantees, even when backed by the most powerful military on earth. The consequence? According to multiple regional reports, Gulf Arab states are now in serious discussions about new regional security arrangements. Not with the United States, with Iran. Let that land. Nations that spent years, billions of dollars, and enormous political capital aligning themselves with Washington are now quietly exploring whether their long-term security interests require accommodation with Tehran, because the current American president has demonstrated through action that U.S. military power without competent strategic leadership is not a reliable security guarantor. This is announcement number 2. Received. Announcement number 3. And nobody saw this one coming. Vladimir Putin is winning, not with missiles, not with soldiers, with money. While the Strait of Hormuz is under effective Iranian control, while Gulf oil infrastructure is being targeted by Iranian drones, while global energy markets are in chaos, Russian oil exports are flowing freely. Russian tankers are transiting normally. Russian crude is being purchased by buyers who cannot access Gulf supply. And according to financial analysts tracking Russian export revenue, Putin is currently generating hundreds of millions of dollars per day in additional petroleum revenue as a direct consequence of this war. Let me put a finer point on that. The United States military launched a war that has functionally enriched Vladimir Putin. At the same time, Trump's own special envoys are reportedly holding meetings in Miami with Russian contacts. This, while Russia maintains its strategic alignment with Iran against American military operations in the region. And China, which maintains its own alignment with Iran, continues to receive oil through the Strait of Hormuz, even as that strait is closed to American allied shipping. Trump praised Xi Jinping this week. Trump is praising Pakistan, which issued a formal statement of solidarity with Iran. India, whose Prime Minister Modi spoke directly with Iranian President Pezeshkian, issued a statement expressing deep concern over the escalation of tensions and the loss of civilian lives, while emphasizing India's commitment to dialogue and diplomacy. India is signaling sympathy toward Iran. Pakistan stands with Iran. India sympathizes with Iran. China supports Iran economically. Russia profits from the chaos surrounding Iran. And Trump is posting on Truth Social, demanding that Jerome Powell cut interest rates. This is announcement number 3, received. Now, let's talk about what's happening behind closed doors in Washington, because this is where it gets genuinely uncomfortable. The chaos inside the administration is not being hidden well. The justification for this war has shifted so many times that even allied governments have stopped pretending they understand what the mission is. Congressional members, including Democratic representatives, have gone on record stating that without a clear mission objective, there is no coherent way to design a strategy, to define tactics, or to measure success. That is not partisan talking point. That is basic military doctrine. Meanwhile, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt issued a statement this week that deserves to be read carefully. In response to an ABC News report suggesting that Iran poses a potential threat to the American homeland, Leavitt said the story should be immediately retracted. She called it unverified. She said, and I want to quote this precisely, "To be clear, there's been no such threat from Iran to our homeland. Ever. It never existed. Ever." Here is why that statement is extraordinary. The original justification for this war, one of them before the justification changed 3 times in 72 hours, was that Iran posed a threat to American national security. The White House communications director is now publicly saying that threat never existed. She appears to be unaware that she has just undermined the legal and political foundation of the entire military operation. You cannot build a coalition of willing allies when every statement your administration makes contradicts the previous statement. You cannot maintain international credibility when your press secretary is publicly invalidating your own casus belli. As one Democratic congressman from California put it in a widely cited interview this week, you can't lie your way out of a war. It occurs in real time. The consequences are something everybody feels. He's right, and everybody is already feeling it. If you live in the American Midwest, Great Plains, or Southeast, regions where manufacturing, agriculture, and logistics drive the economy, here is what this war means for you right now. Fuel prices. The national average for gasoline has risen significantly since the Hormuz closure. Diesel, which drives trucking, which drives everything you buy in a store, is moving in the same direction. Agricultural operations that depend on diesel for equipment and on fertilizer inputs derived from natural gas are facing cost structures that will take months to work through the supply chain. Those costs land on your grocery bill. If you work in energy, refining, or petrochemicals, your sector is in a period of extreme volatility. Short-term margins look strong in some segments, but long-term capital allocation, the decisions that determine whether plants expand, whether hiring happens, whether infrastructure gets built, that is frozen. Nobody is making 10-year investment decisions while the Strait of Hormuz is functionally closed. If you have retirement savings in equity markets, a 401k, an IRA, a pension fund with equity exposure, you have already watched volatility metrics spike. The VIX, the so-called fear gauge of U.S. equity markets, has moved sharply. Defense contractors initially rallied. Energy stocks split. Upstream producers gained on higher oil prices. Refiners faced margin compression from crude cost increases. Banks with Middle East exposure are under pressure. This is not theoretical. This is not a future scenario. This is your portfolio right now. And here's the part that the White House really does not want you to think about. Once regional trading relationships restructure, once Gulf states sign new security arrangements with Iran, once Asian economies lock in alternative energy supply chains that bypass American guaranteed shipping lanes, once European allies begin designing defense doctrines that do not rely on U.S. security guarantees, those relationships do not easily reverse when the political winds change in Washington. As one analyst put it bluntly, the jobs that leave when supply chains restructure do not come back when tariffs end. The alliances that fracture when trust is broken do not reassemble on request. This is a structural shift, not a temporary disruption. Hit like if this is making sense. And drop a comment. I want to know, did you see this coming? Because I'm going to tell you what I think happens next. I see two paths. There's no middle ground here. Not anymore. Path one, the path that requires something close to a miracle at this point, someone inside the administration, whether it's Besant, whether it's a senior military commander, whether it's a congressional intervention through emergency war powers legislation, forces a genuine strategic pause. A ceasefire framework is negotiated, possibly through back channels involving Qatar, which has historically served as an intermediary between Washington and Tehran. Iran agrees to freeze further strikes in exchange for a defined American de-escalation timeline. The Strait of Hormuz reopens to international shipping under some form of internationally monitored arrangement. Markets stabilize, energy prices pull back from their highs. The Gulf Arab states, watching Washington demonstrate some capacity for strategic coherence, hold off on finalizing alternative security arrangements with Iran. This path exists. It is narrow. It requires the current administration to publicly acknowledge that the original strategy was insufficient, something this White House has demonstrated zero appetite for. Path 2. The spiral. Iran continues its systematic targeting of Gulf infrastructure. A strike kills American service members, not missing, not injured, killed. The domestic political pressure forces an escalation response. The U.S. launches additional strikes. Iran activates proxy networks in Yemen, in Lebanon, in Syria. The conflict expands from a bilateral U.S.-Iran operation into a genuine regional war with multiple active fronts. At that point, the comparison people reach for is not Iraq 2003. It is something considerably worse. Because unlike Iraq, Iran has a sophisticated drone and missile arsenal, proven proxy networks, and strategic partners, Russia and China, who have every economic and geopolitical incentive to ensure that American power is exhausted and discredited in this theater. The Strait of Hormuz closes indefinitely. Oil trades at levels that trigger a global recession. NATO allies, already alarmed by American unilateralism, begin accelerating their own independent defense arrangements. The dollar's status as the global reserve currency, which depends on confidence in American institutional stability, comes under pressure. Nobody wins in that scenario. Everybody bleeds. I think we are closer to path 2 than path 1. I thought that 3 days ago, and then something changed, and then it changed back. That's the nature of where we are right now. Iran's Supreme National Security Council Secretary Ali Larijani said it plainly this week. His statement, Trump says he is looking for a speedy victory. While starting a war is easy, it cannot be won with a few tweets. We will not relent making you sorry for this grave miscalculation. That is not bluster. That is a strategic communication from a government that has been here before, that survived years of maximum pressure, that has built redundant military and economic infrastructure precisely to endure sustained conflict, and that is currently watching its adversaries' coalition fall apart in real time. Meanwhile, on the domestic political side of this, the same week that American crew members go missing over western Iraq and French soldiers are injured by Iranian drones in northern Iraq, Trump is giving a speech in Kentucky claiming the war is going great, that there's no danger in the Strait of Hormuz, that this is a victory. International audiences are watching those clips. Leaders in Tokyo, in Berlin, in Riyadh, in New Delhi. And what they are seeing is not the projection of American strength. They are seeing something that, as one veteran congressman put it, is comical, but at the same time deadly. This is what credibility collapse looks like in slow motion. It's not a dramatic moment. It's not a single event. It's speech after speech, statement after statement, justification after justification, each one slightly contradicting the last, each one eroding a little more of the foundational trust that makes American alliances function. You cannot lie to your allies for years and then ask them to stand beside you in a war. You cannot publicly invalidate your own casus belli and then expect adversaries to take your red lines seriously. You cannot demand that your Federal Reserve Chairman cut interest rates in real time via social media post while 6 of your military crew members are missing in a war zone and expect the world to see a steady hand on the wheel. Before we close, one more layer to this that deserves attention. There is an ongoing domestic political dimension that connects directly to what's happening in the Middle East. America, before this war began, was already under significant economic strain. Healthcare costs rising, housing unaffordability at generational highs, a jobs market showing signs of structural softening, consumer prices elevated by prior tariff regimes. These were the conditions on the ground before a single bomb dropped on Iran. Now add the war premium on energy, add the uncertainty drag on business investment, add the erosion of consumer confidence that comes when people watch the evening news and cannot figure out what their government's plan actually is. One Democratic congressman from California, a member of the Congressional Dads Caucus, a bipartisan group of roughly 50 members focused on family economic issues, said this week that his caucus is preparing what they call a national summit on the caregiving crisis, scheduled for the 17th of March. The focus: paid family leave, affordable housing, childcare costs, elder care, the economic fundamentals that working families actually deal with every day. His argument, and it's a simple one, is that opposition cannot just be opposition. It has to be a vision. We can fight Trump every step of the way and call out his hypocrisy, he said. But we also have to say, if we take power, this is what we're going to fight for. That argument is going to matter a great deal in the next 18 months, because the political landscape of this war is going to be determined not just by what happens in the Strait of Hormuz, but by what happens at the gas pump, at the grocery store, in the unemployment numbers, in the mortgage application rejection rates. Trump campaigned on ending foreign wars, on putting America first, on reducing the cost of living. He is currently presiding over an unauthorized war with no exit strategy, no defined mission, no congressional approval, and no allied coalition. A war that is costing billions of dollars per week, that has spiked energy prices for American consumers, and that has demonstrably weakened America's strategic position in the most consequential region on the planet. Even within the Republican base, according to multiple reporting sources, there is a growing and audible question. This isn't America first. This isn't MAGA first. This is Trump family first. This is billionaire first. This is the same establishment we were supposed to disrupt, just wearing a different hat. That fracture matters. It matters electorally. And it matters because the human costs of this war, the missing crew, the injured soldiers, the civilians caught in drone strike debris fields, the families who will never fully reassemble, those costs are going to accumulate in ways that no media management strategy can fully contain. So let me leave you with the questions that I keep coming back to. Is Donald Trump actually in control of this war? Or has the war taken control of him? Are the Gulf Arab states preparing to permanently realign with Iran? And if they do, what does that mean for 50 years of American Middle East policy? And the question that keeps me up at night: when the dust settles, when this chapter ends, which country will be stronger, the one that launched the war or the one that survived it? Drop your answers in the comments, every single one. I read them all. If Daily Brief has been keeping you ahead of this story, subscribe if you haven't yet. Hit like on this video. Share it with someone who needs to understand what is actually happening here. Not the version being managed from the podium, but the version that connects the missing aircraft over Western Iraq to your gas bill, to global oil markets, to the future of American alliances. We'll have more on this as it develops, and it will develop fast. Stay with us.